Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm your host, Sadie Ingen for Real Talk with Sadie. This episode will be uploaded on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Real Talk with Sadie. And I do actually record these on YouTube. It's Sadie in LA 96. And please give my Instagram a follow as I'm just getting started. It is Sadie in LA 96. So, yet again, it's no surprise that I'm a huge fan of The Last of Us. Well, get this, it has been Emmy nominated 24 times from Outstanding Lead Actor and Actress in a Drama Series to drumroll, Outstanding Picture Editing for a Drama Series. So, today's guests are Emmy nominated editors Emily Mendez and Timothy Good for their incredible work for The Last of Us. And I seriously can't fathom how excited I am to learn the behind the scenes of what it takes to get perfection on a screen. So, Timothy and Emily, to get things started, I want to say that not all my listeners are crazy film fanatics. So, if you could just simply give me the definition of what an editor does for film, that would be great to kick things off.
Oh, fantastic. And thank you so much for having us. We're
Yeah,
so
thank
we're
you. We're
we're
so
so
happy to be here.
excited. Yeah. Hey,
Me too.
Emily, why don't you start the ball on this one?
Yeah, so if I was to describe editing to someone who doesn't really know what it is,
Mhm.
we are behind a computer. We're given the footage that they film for the day, and we put it all together to help tell the story. We're essentially crafting the story visually
Mhm.
through what they call editing. I don't know, Tim, do you have
Yeah, that's a good start. And
yeah.
and the thing that most people who don't know a lot about editing might ask the question is what do we just sit around and wait until they're done filming? And maybe on a short film you might do that.
Mhm.
They might film everything and then they look for an editor. But on a bigger production, they require the editors to start editing immediately alongside the production.
I
So what
love
we
that.
do is we actually travel along, like we are a day behind every day. So whatever they film is delivered to us the very next morning, and then an assistant editor will then uh, manage all of that and turn it into a bunch of clips for us. And each
Mhm.
clip represents, one piece of footage that was shot from one camera. Sometimes we have multiple cameras shooting at any given time, and those can be grouped together and we can see all three or four cameras, even if there are more, maybe even more. We
Mhm.
can see them all sunk up together and we can play them simultaneously and we can make our decisions that way. So we're constantly making decisions about what is important to be in the story and what is not, because in general, a day of editing is about, oh my gosh, somewhere anywhere between an hour and a half of dailies to 7 hours of dailies.
Wow.
And it
Okay.
ultimately has to be pared down to about 4 to 5 minutes worth generally per day,
Wow.
or sometimes less. So there's so much that doesn't ever make it in. And
Mhm.
so I think that what people don't may not know is how much of it is not used, and how we have to really truly hone in on exactly the parts that we think are important to tell the story. And which is one of the reasons why, on a big production such as Last of Us, they want us working next right alongside of them, because who knows, maybe one day they're filming and they're filming and they're filming and they forget a shot, and then the
Right.
next day we're putting it together and we're going, I don't have
Really
this.
that.
I
Mhm.
need this piece. They're still there, and we will make a call to the director and quietly say, did we get this piece of film? So hopefully it's somewhere hiding, or you didn't do it and you plan to. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, I forgot. Thank you very much.
You do
And then
them
they
a
will go
favor.
out and they will get it the next day. So basically, and then the thing that is really exciting about editing is once that's all done, we are the last people to really, everything gets funneled to us, and we are the people who are molding and shaping the entire production. So every artistic endeavor that goes into that production is ultimately in charge. We're in charge of, whether it's hair, whether it's makeup, whether it's visual effects, sound, cinematography, performance. It all comes to us, and we make decisions, and we will look at, oh, the hair was not correct in this one, and or if we're going to use this one because it's a good
Oh,
performance, we need to fix
continuity?
it.
Is that
Yeah,
the
we
word?
need to fix the hair. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there have been
Mhm.
times where like, oh, there was like a hair that stuck down and just, because the wind blew in the middle of the take,
Right.
and there's nothing we can do about it. But then we will talk to visual effects if we really need it and say, we really want to make this continuous. So it makes, everything it flows the way that all the other artists are doing their job. So we are very much, we're like the Renaissance people of filmmaking, I suppose.
Oh,
so,
I like that term.
Yeah, we're Renaissance people.
Line. Renaissance people. No,
And,
that's a
and,
great
and
way.
yeah, and that's what we are.
I
That's
love
what
that.
editing is.
No, that's perfect because I'm naive to it too. I'm just getting started with the whole language. I've interviewed a few actors and they're like, do you know your mark and casting calls and all of this language? So thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
So Emily, I know that you've done work on the Umbrella Academy. So did you, Timothy, and The Resident, both of you.
Yep.
And Emily, your IMBD has like a plethora of shorts. I love that. And then Timothy, you did some Gossip Girl. But just quickly, how did you first meet? Like the very, very first time you met, and how did that happen? If you want to share, Emily, your story, that'd be great.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I got started. Let's see. So the shorts come back from throw me back, but till came out to Los Angeles because I went to AFI and I specialized in editing. And we did a lot of shorts at AFI. So that's where those come from. And after AFI, I went and did a lot of work at a behind the scenes company, a local company in Los Angeles called Narrator. And after I'd been there for a couple of years, I was talking with one of my teachers from AFI. I was like, I have my hours for the roster, which you need to get into the union. When you're an editor, a lot of the work we do is union. There's a whole process. I was set up and I was talking to my teacher. I was like, I'm ready to go. I want to do TV. TV was always my dream. And so she got me connected with an editor named Nicole Vascal, who was working on a show called Rosewood, which was on Fox. And so I met with Nicole, and the thing that's really hard when you have no TV experience, but you want to be in TV, people always want you to have TV experience. So getting that first job, it's tough. But I met with Nicole because Farrell Levy, my teacher from AFI, who also is a professional editor, has done a lot of things like Nashville and Julia. Wow. And she said great things about me and got me connected. And so Nicole met with me and interviewed me. And we bonded over our love for Spotify. We both had a background in behind the scenes cutting. So there were a lot of things we connected with. And Nicole decided to take a chance on me. And so I started assisting for her. And so we worked on Rosewood. It went really well. And we finished out on that second season. And then she was like, okay, well, we're going to go on this show called The Resident. And so we went on to the show, The Resident, for season 1. It was also a Fox show. And there was another editor on the show named Tim Good. So that's how I met Tim. Yeah. So
that's a love story.
Who, me?
Yeah. So Tim,
cool.
Yeah. So Tim was one of the other editors. And so we knew each other for a couple years before we actually started working together, because I was with Nicole and then Tim's assistant Amanda was working with him. And so that was how we met. And even before I was assisting him, Tim was always be like, come into my room. Like, I'm going to teach you these things. Come,
you're the mentor.
I was already, he's incredible. And I was already learning things from him. And he was teaching me awesome tricks even from the beginning. So
this is 2018. Is that when Resident?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, it was around 2018.
For a while.
2017, 2018.
2017. Yeah, I think we started at the end of 2017. So we've known each other since then. We started working together officially in 2019.
Yeah.
Wow. So then after The Resident, so you guys really bonded, and then the Umbrella Academy came after that. Is that true?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we worked on season 3 of The Resident, a little bit of season 4, then we worked on Umbrella Academy. Tim edited and I was assisting.
Wow. Do you think, I'm now jumping ahead, but do you think having that kind of chemistry and bond prior helped you with The Last of Us? If you guys went into it as strangers for The Last of Us, do you think it would have been different?
For sure it would have been different, but it would have we would have gotten to the same place. Just would have taken a little bit longer perhaps. So, but I find that, Emily is a quick study in everything. So it would have been just like a, yep. And then she would have gotten there.
I think the thing that did help us though, knowing each other and working together for so many years before, is when we were working together on The Resident season 3, Tim and I co-edited some episodes together. And so
right off the bat,
we'd already done that. And so he knew I could edit, and we kind of were worked through that process already. And so that kind of set us up. So once we got to The Last of Us, you know, what he was pushing eventually when he needed some help editorially, he was like, Emily can co-edit it, you know, if you guys will approve this. You
Yeah,
know? And
take the
so,
reins on it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that did help.
Oh, I love that too.
Yes,
So
we
let's go
had experience. So
Yeah.
together,
No, I
Yeah.
love that. Fantastic. I need to watch The Resident. I have seen the Umbrella Academy.
it's really good.
Great.
So
Yeah,
I
The
love
Resident.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah?
that first season is
It's
I love.
amazing.
There's an incredible episode Tim edited on season 1. Is it episode
Okay.
5?
It's episode 5. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that one so much.
That episode is so good.
Ooh,
It's
noted.
one of my favorites. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Thank you.
highly recommend it.
Okay,
And
what
it's
a good
got, you know,
pick.
Shawnette Renee Wilson, who was in Indiana Jones.
I
That was
love
her
Shawnette.
start.
Oh,
So
heck yeah.
her start in filmmaking is on The Resident. You know,
Wow.
she was an amazing character.
Anytime we got to work on a scene with the character of Mina, who's Shawnette's character in the show, I was just loving it. Like, she's the
how fun.
best. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really great.
Yeah.
So is it like a knockoff Grey's Anatomy? Or am I completely off?
No, you're close. The only the major difference is that it was trying to look under the hood a bit and see how the medical industrial complex, as it were, is sometimes fraught with ethics problems and all sorts of business concerns that sometimes overtake patient care, and how these doctors at this hospital were trying to fight against that and try to do the best for their patients that they possibly could do, and shine, specific lights on things like maternal mortality amongst Black women, which was a huge, major episode that we did that was really well. I mean, Nicole cut that episode.
Yeah, that episode
and
is beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
yeah, no, it's really great.
That's in season 2.
That's season 2, episode 20.
And it is. So, it's so sad, but
it's
sad. Really well done. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was really important for our creator, Amy Holden Jones, to show all of the things that no one's talking about, and to try and help, society at large. So that's why The Resident was such a great experience, because it wasn't just trying to be like, here's a bunch of people in relationships. It was like, here are some problems in the medical industry, and here's what we're trying to shine a light on. So that was really great.
I'm sold. Truly sold
see?
on The Resident. Okay.
Maybe we have another career as publicists.
I'm going to let my husband know, and we're going to watch it tonight with dinner. Well, thank
Love
you. All right. Back to kind of the past, both of you. So my question is, what is your first memory being captivated by the film industry? Like, do you have a specific movie or TV show? Just a quick, simple answer.
Yeah. I can go first. I'm so bad because I'm also I'm aged. So I'm going to say The Empire Strikes Back.
Heck yeah.
It really
is
answer. It's my first major memory. I'd seen other things, including, sadly, Hardware Wars, which was a spoof of Star Wars. If you need to sort of laugh sadly, you can watch that.
Okay. I got to look up the date of Empire Strikes Back. What?
Yeah, Empire Strikes Back is 1980.
Yeah, 1980, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was transfixed because it was sad ending. And I watched it over and over, and I'm like, you can end a movie sad. So I can leave a movie sad and want to re-experience that. And I just was like, how is that even possible? So that was my first.
Editing at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Look how they edit. Look at that. And all of the CGI back then, special effects, that's silly.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's in my mind, I can still watch that and just be like, you did a great job in a parking lot in Van Nuys, California. So
yeah, very good. Emily, what's your specific memory of a film or TV show that kind of sparked your interest for film?
So I was always interested in film and TV, like from a very young age, but the one that really got me into editing is Jaws. And I
I
know. So
you went back before me.
I know.
Wait, so is that the 1970s? Here, let's look it up.
Yes.
I love Google.
75, right?
So Jaws,
Jaws 1. We know your dates, Tim.
Yeah, Tim is on it. There you go. So yeah, my grandpa showed us Jaws, and I was probably a little young for it. It did scare me. It scared me. I was so scared of it, but also it inspired my siblings and I to recreate it when we were on vacation and Florida. My family would visit Florida, and so we had this like little old handy cam, and we made our own version of Jaws. And the first time that I ever edited on any kind of non-linear software was Windows Movie Maker, and I took this footage that we'd recorded with like this plastic little shark, and like we had the whole thing, and I put it all together, and then I just never really stopped. So that was what got me into editing.
I love that. You know, it's funny. I used to think I was a really good editor. I'm flexing my own self. My grandpa had the Mac book, you know, iMovie, such a classic.
Yeah.
And I did like
Yeah, of
Indiana
course.
Jones trailer. Had like the pre-edited music and the Indiana Jones like tan-colored scene, just like the theme look of it. It was so great with my cousins. I feel ya. How fun. Good
Yeah.
answers. I'm so impressed with Jaws and
know.
Empire Strikes Back. Okay,
There you go.
that's
Not bad.
fantastic. So, Emily, you said that you attended AFI here in LA.
Yeah.
Timothy, did you go to college as well?
I did, and I went to Northwestern University, which is in Chicago. I
Nice.
went there because I wasn't ready to leave Chicago just yet. I'm from Chicago, and it just took me a few more years to be like, I got to leave. These winters are too much. But yeah, it's where I went. I went to they had a film school there. They have a film school there, and I also studied economics as well because
Oh, wow.
my dad was like, maybe you want to back up to
Oh, boy.
film, maybe. So, and I was like, well, if there's one thing that's a great backup, it's how to make money. So and
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well,
True.
I'll just do that one. So,
Yeah.
and I was really good at that, actually. I enjoyed economics, but film was really great. And I was in a small class that had a lot of really great people who are now sort of all over the industry, actually. Zach
That is
Braff
so
was in my
cool.
class, for example.
Send them names. Send them to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And one of my dear friends is a big producer now for Akiva Goldsman, who does all the Star Trek series and
Oh,
just
cool.
did the Crowded Room on Apple TV with Tom Holland. So yeah, it's really
Nice.
cool to like, you know, have come from this sort of small group of really, really smart people who are now all over the place.
Wow. And both of you for college, did you have like expectations going into it? Did you know like, oh, this is what I actually want to do? Because I'm a business major, very basic in college. And sometimes I was like, I don't know if this is for me. But were you guys pleasantly surprised with your degree for film?
I wanted to be an editor. So
Yeah, it was all
I
good.
was like,
Okay,
that's what I'm
good.
doing. So
Yeah.
I was like, literally like anyone who would say I'm making a film, I'm like, well, would you like me to edit it?
I love
So,
that. So gung
and
ho.
anything I knew and anything I could find that was editing related, I just was like, well, where's the new system? And the Avids came in my senior year and I'm like,
Oh yeah, that's
So-
your whole passion. Same with
and
you,
I was
Emily.
like, you got to be kidding me. So,
Yeah, I knew I wanted to edit too. And actually back in high school, I went to a very small high school, and there was no film club or anything, but I would like edit anything I could. I would edit the graduation slideshows, I would edit like sports banquet stuff.
Yeah.
I was always editing when I could. And then I actually did my undergrad in Fort Worth because similar to Tim, I wasn't ready to leave, you know, my hometown yet. And so but I did study in film, and we had a lot of classes, not too many editing specific classes. So I got an internship at a local production company where I actually learned Avid Media Composer, which is the software that we use now, you know, and most of what we do. And I was just always trying to edit. And that's why I ended up going to AFI because they had a specialty in editing. And there was I had a classmate in my undergrad that she was applying to the directing specialty, and she needed someone to edit her film that she was submitting. And so she asked me to edit it, and then told me about AFI and was like, you know, they have an editing specialty. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
And then I applied and got in. So
Fantastic. I love those little stories. You just never know where you start.
you never know.
Yep.
And then this is my funny question. Have either of you been in plays or tried acting? It could be the smallest thing. Like I was a rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, and it was great.
I was a rabbit too.
Yes, go rabbit.
I was a rabbit in The Last of Us.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. He's serious. Yeah.
I'm serious.
Oh.
I am the photo booth bunny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my. I love this. Okay, that's an Easter
So
egg.
there you go.
Thank you.
So we were both bunnies.
Oh my
So-
gosh, Emily, get with it.
I know, right? My acting for
I love
me is I'm not in a ton of things, although I am in a behind the scenes video we did for the movie Sisters. There was a spoof we did for Sisters: The Farce Awakens, and I am in some shots with Maya Rudolph. in the
That's
back,
cool.
in the background. And so that's the only thing I've ever done. But no, I'm not so much into acting. It's very, I like have so much respect for actors because I think it's such a talent to be in front of the camera. I very much prefer to be behind the camera, behind the computer, editing it. So
I like that. Very good. Good answers. So you ready for the Last of Us questions? The moment we've been waiting for.
sure.
Let's do it.
So I've done my little research. So Timothy, I knew that you knew Craig Mason and his wife prior to The Last of Us, right? Mutual friends in the film
That's
world.
right.
Is that right? Okay.
It's my husband's dear friend, Craig.
I love that. Right.
And so we would have them over to our house for dinners. We actually just had another one with Emily and her wife this past Saturday to celebrate all of the Emmy nominations, which was really fun.
It was so much fun.
It was really great because that's what we like to do. We just like to have fun, and someone makes a meal, or we'll make a meal that's like disgusting and dare each other to eat it. So it's like, oh, you want to have Jello mold with raw vegetables inside? Anybody?
What the?
So,
that's like post-apocalyptic food. What the hell are you
there
talking
you go.
about?
I mean, wouldn't that be kind of appropriate?
That's
but
fantastic.
yeah, no, that's kind of. I mean, and he was always a comedy writer. He did the Hangover sequels, and he always did all sorts of great hilarious comedies. And he's also really just naturally the sharpest, funniest person. So he's just fun to hang around. And then he says, oh, I have this this sizzle reel of the show I'm doing called Chernobyl. And we're like, oh, weird. And he plays it for us. And I was just like, this is amazing. And I told him, I said, I whatever you do next, I'm going to basically track you down. I would like to, I really want to work with you on anything else you do. And he said, you never know. So, and then a few years later, we know. Now we know.
It all worked out because of a scheduling conflict with someone else, right?
That's right. Yeah. No, it's like I couldn't have gotten in without the scheduling conflict. And, totally understandable. Right. I was working on something. They had hired the editors already. And then it just so happened that one of them had to continue on another show. And they had to drop out of this, and they were looking desperately. They're like, we need to find someone right now. And I was just finishing up on Umbrella Academy 3, and I found, I got word that they were looking, and I immediately just was like, can we do this?
Yes.
And that was the moment where they were like, yeah, I think we can make this happen. And I called Emily, and I said, we're going to maybe do this Last of Us show. And she's like, we are doing this Last of Us show. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it.
Yes. Because I know, Emily, because I know that you played the game, and you're a huge fan of it. Yeah. I'm actually playing part 2 hard mode. I've been going through it. I'm trying to get to Survivor mode.
That's impressive. I never played anything on hard mode. I'm like, I've always keep it at the middle. Emily? I keep it at the middle because like I get so into it, and if I get stuck, I'm like, I just want to know what the next part of the story is. And if I'm stuck on hard mode and I keep dying and I can't move forward, I get frustrated. But I'm impressed. Hard mode is tough.
Yeah.
But having knowing the game before, and then Timothy saying, The Last of Us, I bet that was just like butterflies and like a shock. So Tim, did you play the game before? Did you even know about The Last of Us?
I knew about it because, again, my husband, who sometimes writes video games, he's like, oh, this video game is like, it's kind of the best story ever.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's like, when it was announced that was Craig's next project, he's like, you definitely want to do that.
Yeah, and it's going to be Craig Mason on it.
The story is incredible, and Craig is writing it.
Yeah.
You don't want to miss that.
Even
if you can. So Neil, So between those things, it was just and again, I'd never played the game, and because we got hired so late, I didn't have the chance to play it. True. And so it was a calculated risk on our part, but we discussed it together, Emily and I, that I wouldn't know the game, and she did know the game. She did, she hadn't played it recently, but it was still like, she had sense memories of it.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting sort of dynamic to have me not knowing anything and approaching everything from the sort of the audience who doesn't know anything's perspective. So I can make sure that it still works for the average, the general audience who just doesn't know the game. So I'm trying to tell a good story. Yeah. And then Emily is like going, oh, you know what you're doing here? You're doing this like the game. And I go, really? And so then she would correct me and give me little pointers. This shirt's important. That thing's important. So it was nice because then, between the two of us, we developed this really cool style where we were able to develop a sort of a flow of the story that worked for both.
Oh, I think that's a great balance that you have. And
Yeah.
trust me, you catered it to me because my husband played the Last of Us game. I didn't even watch him play. That's how much I did not care about video games. So then he begged me to watch The Last of Us. He already watched like the first 3 episodes by himself, and then it's like, fine, I'll try it. I was like hooked instantly. And then that's how I started my podcast because I loved film, but I didn't know who to start with. What better way to start with my new favorite show? And that's how I started this because my first
Great.
guest was Anna Rice, who was the nurse on episode 9. So
Amazing.
the show
Very
was
cool.
fantastic. So I don't think I needed to know the game at all to love this story. And
Well,
so many
that
other
was our
stories.
goal.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you achieved it so well.
Good.
So Emily, I know that you played the game. Is this your first project of a game adaptation? And for you too, Tim?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Umbrella Academy is based on like a graphic novel, right? So that we had
Yeah.
that. But yeah, video game wise, for
First
sure.
time. You
Yeah,
too,
Yeah.
never
Lindsay?
me either. Yeah. No, it's the first and again it was like, whoa, what are we doing?
Yeah. And I know there's like controversy about video game adaptations. They're not always that good. You guys did great.
Yeah. And that's
You
the
did
thing.
great.
We recognize that, with Neil and Craig, it's just there's just such strong storytellers.
Yeah.
It's just and Craig's sort of character forward method of bringing the audience into that world.
Sure.
I don't think there's a better way to do it. So
That's
Yeah.
great. So I want to get into like some weird questions, but I'm just so fascinated and I love behind the scenes, like nitty gritty.
let's do it.
So like the process, and I just learned what dailies are, the raw, unedited footage during filmmaking. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That
that's
is correct.
So like the process, before you even see like the dailies, do you talk with Craig? Like, does he give you the script? Does he give you notes prior on like what to expect when things start coming in? Like, what's the first initial step that happened when you got hired?
Oh, well, here's and it's a little atypical because again, this was a sort of a fast and parachuting in situation. But I did get the scripts, up front.
Yeah,
And
cool. That's what I was
and
wondering.
so
Yeah.
normally what would happen is you might get the scripts early and then you might have a conversation with the showrunner. You might
Yeah.
have, what are your values? What is the, what kind of music do you like? What kind of this? You try and sort of get a sense of who they are so you can start seeing if any of those things are meshing with how you work, or as I like to say, I start to become a chameleon and I start to adjust myself to the rhythm of the person I'm working with, whose show it ultimately is, and that's typical. But in this atypical world, I was given the script, I read the script, I was like, no notes because these are absolutely incredible, and they're such rich documents. I mean, that's the thing I remember so much is that they're so. You can read episode 3 script.
I
They
have. It's
posted that.
beautiful. Craig did
It's
an amazing
beautiful.
job. Like the
Yeah.
emotions, like there's details. Emily, did
The
you get the script
details.
too?
Yeah, I also
You
got
both
the
did.
script and
Yeah,
it's
and so
just
we
like,
knew.
yeah, it automatically like transported us to this world and we were like, oh,
Wow.
we were so excited
Yeah.
when we got
The
the
whole
script.
script, not just like an episode, the whole thing. Right?
Oh, no, just
No,
the
we would only get
episode.
the episode scripts
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
as
Okay.
they were
For the
coming
episode,
out.
yeah.
As they were coming
Yeah.
out, right? Because you'd get footage.
Yeah.
As
So
they
they
come.
would come
Gotcha.
out later on. So that and in television, a lot of times the scripts aren't necessarily written yet. I think Craig kind of had them all done before this. I'm pretty sure that tracks. That he
Things
would
can
not
change
start
too,
anything
right?
until things can change, and they do
Yeah.
change. It's just
Yeah.
sort of then you adjust the script as you go forward.
Okay.
But for us, it was just like it was a trying to sort of decode how to tell the story from the script giving us so much information about the world, and then how the director Peter Hoare on Long Time,
Yeah.
episode 3, that was our
Mhm.
first one that we did, and we just started to develop this style of very deliberate editorial choices, and it turns out that that's exactly what Craig was looking for,
Oh,
which
that helps
really
a lot.
was really helpful. We didn't know. So when
No.
we were doing it, it was really stressful, because it was like, I kept saying, I'm not making a lot of edits. I mean, I'm not paid by the edit, that's for sure. But at the same time, are they going to go like, these scenes are too long? There's too many nuanced moments between the two characters. Are they going to freak out? I was just finding so much truth in all of these moments that I was like, I can't cut these out. I just can't do
Oh.
it. And so
Absolutely.
when we showed everyone, they were like, yes, this is what we want. So that began our process, and that's generally, again, atypical that we had no context as to what anyone wanted. But we
Right.
just sort of brought our own, and what was nice is that Craig Mazin and Peter Horace, the director, they didn't really try to impose anything onto us up front. He just said, do what you do, and I'll look at it when you're done.
I
And I'm
love
like,
that.
okay. So
Wow.
and
And
yeah.
so episode 3, it's obviously beautiful. And you just mentioned that you are a gay man and you're married. Did that episode, like editing, did that resonate with you? And I know for you, Emily, episode 7 really resonated with you. So did you think that editing and having your own like love story helped with that?
100%, because I
Yeah.
am very much a Frank in a
I was
in
gonna
a in
ask
a
you, that's a good
in a
way
in
to
a in
put
a
it.
in a in a relationship with a Bill. He would say I am not Bill, which is very Bill
Yeah.
to say that. So he's like, don't you dare call me Bill. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So anyway, but no, I really having sort of met my husband 20 years ago, which is exactly when this is taking place, actually.
Wow.
And understanding sort of the dynamics of what it was like to meet other gay men during that period of time when it was a little harder. You had to be a little bit more cautious and more careful who you talk to. It wasn't as open of a society as we have now. I mean, despite its obvious problems still, but back then it was even more tricky. So being able to sort of see on these dailies these moments, these little tiny moments where Murray Bartlett was sort of sending us sort of a nonverbal cue to the character of Bill, Nick Offerman, and then them sort of sussing each other out and trying to, one's hiding from the other and the other's trying to gently tell the other that I'm safe and I'm okay. And, all of these wonderful sort of moments that I recognized, I was able to carve and make room for.
I love
And
that.
I really was very, that was my blessing, was being able to, as someone, as a gay man, to be able to curate these things for the film,
That's
for the
beautiful.
episode. And that's why it was the freaking most important thing I've done, to be able to share that. And I feel a lot of my own life in that episode, whether
Yeah,
or not it's visible to other people or not, I see it. And that's
of
what is
course.
important to me. And I know that Emily feels the same on episode
Truly.
7. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's for me.
Congratulations.
Episode 3. That was why it
Yeah.
felt so good to put together.
I can jump to episode 7 now because you mentioned that you are the Frank. Emily, are you Ellie? Did I say Ellie? No, Emily. Whew. I was gonna say, are you Ellie or Riley?
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, Definitely I would say more the Ellie. Like I would be
Yes,
the person
Yeah.
that would be like
I was
in
gonna say,
that
if you don't say Ellie, we're in
situation.
trouble.
Yeah, no, for
So.
sure.
Can't.
But in that episode, it's very similar to what Tim was just talking about. When we were watching the dailies that were coming in, I was seeing so many little interesting details that both Storm and Bella were giving us, and their
Yeah.
performances were incredible. And so we were essentially just checking the dailies for little hints that
Yeah.
there's a secret language in the queer community sometimes when you're not sure if this other person would be into you romantically like you are, and so you have to be, like Tim was talking about, kind of careful sometimes. And the storyline just reminds me of like when I was in high school. I fell in love with my best friend, and you don't know if they feel the same, and so there's slight variations in proximity that you might do, and maybe sometimes if you get too close you'll overly go away from them because you're like, oh, like I don't want to be weird or them, and
Yeah,
so
you don't want to get
there's a
hurt.
lot of there's a lot there. It's very deep.
Yeah.
And so when we were working on that episode, I feel the same as Tim, where there's a lot of moments in there where I see myself and see things from my own past, and it was a dream to be able to work on that episode, because when I had played The Last of Us, my favorite part was always the Left Behind DLC, which came out after the game
Right.
originally was released. And when I played that, I was like, oh my god, like this is like me, like this is, and you're playing through this
So
love, this
good.
queer love story, and you're like, oh my, this is like the best thing ever, and I had
It's the
never been
best
able
thing
to
ever.
yeah, I'd never been able to play a game before where you're playing as this main character who is falling in love with her best friend, and you're like, I totally get this. So anyways, it holds a lot of meaning for me.
Absolutely. It's still my favorite episode. I've watched it so many times. I'm part of the
It's
queer
great.
community too. I actually just recently like came out as bi, and my husband's super supportive. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, I got my
that's
little.
great.
I wear this every day now, and
Oh,
Yes.
and
nice. Love it.
yeah. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Woo! But no, the
Yeah.
episode 7, like just the way, I'm sure you edited it beautifully, but the acting too is incredible. Just the way like Ellie looks at Storm, and like the eyes and the pauses and the
Yeah.
insecurities. Like I felt that too in the past, so I could
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like see that.
And then
So
you know,
well done.
Emily also was has said that it's like about the stakes of losing a friendship, not
Mhm.
just, you know,
Man.
if you reveal that you're in love with someone and they're not, that
Mhm.
could destroy the entire friendship that
Yeah.
you've had for so long. So there's additional tension there because of the
Yeah.
fact that it's not just, oh, if they don't like me, I'll just walk away. No, it destroys a
Yeah.
huge relationship that's
Yeah.
pre-existing.
Yeah,
Hey,
it can change. It can
oh,
change
go ahead.
everything for sure. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, I was lucky enough to cut the dance and kiss scene in that episode, and there's
Amazing.
Bella gave this amazing performance where before Ellie makes the decision to kiss Riley, they kind of, they're dancing, they take off their masks, and then Riley's like, you know, what is it? And Ellie's like, don't leave, and Riley says okay, and then right
Right.
after that, Ellie just kisses
Like the
Riley,
breath, like yeah.
and it's almost like you can see that Ellie can't breathe in that moment. Like you can
Right. No,
see
there's a
it
breath. I
in
hear it
Bella's
every time.
performance, and it's just like that pressure that you feel of like, okay, this is me kind of jumping off this cliff, like this can change everything. And I saw that when I was watching the dailies, and I was like, that is just the most incredible performance, because I felt it so deeply. And so I think it's just amazing that as our jobs as editors, we can really pull those moments out, and I still feel that every time I watch that scene, and it's really special.
It's great. Even like the dancing before Ellie takes off their mask, you can see them like slowly stop dancing, but in
Yeah.
a weird way. Yeah, so good. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy question that just popped up. So episode 7, you know, it's like the transition from Joel getting hurt, and then there's like the pause of like just the black screen, and then it transitions to Ellie running. Like, how long did you guys have to edit that and figure out like how long that pause needs to be? Because it was a black screen for a little bit. I'm like, oh, whoa, what's gonna happen next? Do you guys remember that?
I do, of course. It's and then you transition to this Pearl Jam song that will take you back in time as well. It was very much it's a very nuanced sort of flashback, in that it's not your obvious sort of television flashback where they would, you know, find some way to, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I hear you.
That kind of thing.
I've seen
So
weird
instead
transitions.
instead it was like this idea that was almost like you wouldn't fully understand it until the end of the episode. So it was like this tease of Ellie stopping at the door and going, and hopefully the audience is asking themselves, why is she stopping? What is she thinking? What is causing her this moment where she stops the action that she's doing? And then we cut out at she goes through the door and you're not sure what's going to happen. And then you cut out, and then of course it leaves the audience wondering, well, where did she go? What did she do? What was her decision?
It was
And
perfect.
what was the decision based on? And then at the end, and then you have this little black, which is just long enough for you to go, wait, what? And then you start to hear this little strum of a guitar. And then it was, I sort of moved it so in rhythm based on where I felt it was just a little bit, just long enough for you to be like, I'm not sure where I am, but I'm not bored. So
no, exactly.
Yeah.
It was a
So that's
perfect
and so we what Emily and I will do is we will use this trim tool in our editing software, and we'll audition different pauses, and we'll say better, no, but worse, go back, and then we'll just do it frame by frame. We'll decide, you know, what's the exact perfect right amount of time, and then we go, all right, that's it, we win. And then by the end, by the end of the episode, then you because of the contextualization of seeing the last words of Riley are, you never give up on family, and then you cut to Ellie at that door again, and you go, oh, you never give up on family. Now the
Right.
context is there. So now we understand why she goes through that door. Instead of leaving, she goes upstairs to try and save him.
Exactly. Beautifully
So
done. And I knew
thank you.
exactly at the end how it all comes together.
That's
God,
right. So it
it's
was
so
like it
good.
wasn't they weren't really, we were not trying to be so obvious.
Right. See, and now I'm jumping around. I'm just get so excited. So episode 7 is by far like my favorite episode. But you both got Emmy nominated for season 1, episode 5, right?
Yes.
Right.
The Sam and Henry episode, Endure and Survive. Now,
Yes.
I was wondering, how does that specific episode get chosen versus all the other incredible episodes? Should have been every single one, if that's even possible.
Yeah, that's a great
But can you
question.
tell me that?
Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, so that episode specifically is very memorable because it has this massive battle sequence. So
Yes.
we've got we
Bloater.
so that sequence has, and hordes of infected and
Yeah.
clickers, and we have the introduction of the bloater. And then we also have in that episode other scenes where we're looking into different characters' backgrounds, like Kathleen. So we have
True.
this like beautiful scene where we're seeing her motivation for why she's doing what she's doing. Like otherwise she might just be seen as this villain who's kind of flat. She's a villain, but you're seeing now this emotional three-dimensional scene of her and why she's doing what she's doing. And then we also have our scenes with Henry and Sam. We're dealing with the whole emotional journey with them. We're dealing with the tragic deaths
Yeah.
that we have for them at the end, which is those scenes were really big scenes to
Oh
work
my
on.
gosh.
So
Mhm.
editorially, there's lots of highs and lows that Tim and I deal with, and it was quite a delicate balance
Yeah,
when
that's the
working on that
thing.
That's
episode.
a good word to put
It's
it.
the
A delicate balance. I
I
get
would
now. I understand
say,
why. Thanks for explaining it. It makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say that was the thing that made that episode the most interesting to us, is that it was a really tight balance. I mean, episode 3 is a beautiful episode and all, but the balance of it was really not all that difficult to do.
Mhm.
The fluidity being what it is, it's great, but we had so many different things that had to just sort of fit just right in episode 5,
Right.
and we had a really high degree of difficulty too, because we're not just dealing with people having conversations. We're dealing with Henry and Sam having conversations using ASL, American Sign Language.
Yep.
So we have to make sure that's correct for not just members of
Wow.
the deaf community.
Mhm.
So that has to be exactly perfect. So we're referencing all the notes from the ASL person on
CJ,
set.
right? Was it
Yeah,
CJ?
CJ. Right, it was CJ. So and he's fantastic, and he was amazing,
Yeah.
and he gave us notes on every single take, every single performance. What was this is upset, this works, this is a little slightly different, but it totally tracks. This is translatable. So CJ totally helped us out there. And then we just that battle sequence was massive, but then I always look at it in the way that it's not your typical battle sequence, in
Right.
that it's not just like, ooh, here's a bunch of ships exploding and ooh, cool shot, cool shot, cool shot. It was always
Agreed.
based on what's happening with Joel and what's happening with Ellie, and how
Mhm.
whatever else is happening
Yeah.
in the scene is actually tied into their characters and their relationship as it's
Yep.
changing at this very moment.
It
There's
is.
the beginning of Joel's panic attacks happen during the battle. When the
Wow.
child clicker goes inside of the van, he sees the child clicker
Mhm.
enter and he can't protect her anymore. You could see him start to have like this, his
Apprehensive.
panic comes up
Yes.
because he's starting to remember the moment where he couldn't do anything to protect Sarah.
Wow.
And
Oh
that's,
my gosh.
yeah. So he's literally having this moment at that time. And she, because she's Ellie and she's resourceful, is able to evade the child clicker
Mhm.
and get out. And then, of course, he's just, the entire time he's hell-bent on protecting her at all
Yeah,
costs.
he's the sniper, and you can
Yes.
you both did a good job editing that too, because I like you were mentioning Pedro having the panic attack, but you
Mhm.
can see like Pedro in his eyes saying like, "I got you." There's some memes on
Yes.
TikTok and edits like, "I got you," and then Ellie's like, "I know you did." Just like
Yeah.
you can see the looks that they're giving each other from a distance. Like,
And
can I run here
that's
without a clicker kicking my ass?
and
Yeah, it's really good.
that's exactly the design, as it was an emotional
You can
character-based
feel it,
action
even
sequence.
though it was intense.
Yeah.
And then of
And
course protecting
and
Sam.
yeah, and Henry and Sam and Perry and Kathleen are basically echo characters
Mhm.
for Joel and Ellie, because they're both protective dyads. Perry is
Yeah.
trying to protect Kathleen during the battle, and he would do anything to protect her, right? Even
Mhm.
get torn apart by the bloater, and that's why the bloater sequence is there. It's not there for cool shots. It's there to show what happens when a protector puts their life at risk and
Right.
how she's able to escape. Does she escape? No, she
Nope.
goes and she
The little
goes
girl
back,
gets it.
and then the child clicker gets her because she cannot just escape and leave. So without that protectiveness, she meets her end, and simultaneously Henry is the protector of Sam, and seeing that Henry couldn't protect Sam,
Oh, it's all
ultimately,
protecting. You're unlocking this
yes,
whole thing.
there's a whole thing to unlock here, because in the end, when Joel witnesses Henry's suicide, after having to kill his own brother to protect Ellie,
Mhm.
he's
Oh
protecting
my
Ellie
god.
instinctively, which is what Joel does in the battle sequence. Joel sees what Henry
Right.
does, and then sees the result of he has to
Right.
kill himself. That plays in to the fact that Joel, in the last episode,
I was gonna say,
reveals
then it
to
plays.
Ellie that he tried to kill himself after he couldn't protect Sarah. So it's
Mm.
all connected in terms of what it feels like to be for the protective aspect of love, and
Wow.
what and how that can both be a force for good, as in like the Bill and Frank episode, but how it also can really destroy people.
Love is
And
the whole word.
it's the key to the whole thing is the complex nature of love.
God, that's so
So
beautiful, Timothy.
there
Thank you
you
for
have
sharing
it.
that.
You're
Ah,
welcome.
I'm gonna cry now. We can end it now. Super good. So, would you say that episode 5 was the hardest episode to edit then?
I think so. I mean, it really was. It required the most. It wasn't hard. It wasn't hard to edit per se, because we had a really great director, Jeremy Webb, and
Okay.
his materials always really well thought out. We had all the pieces we needed, but at the same time, it's like you're trying to make sure that you're not spending too much time on one thing versus the other.
Yeah,
Everything
the
has to be
narrative
balanced
flow and the
exactly
pacing.
right. Yeah, it
Mhm.
all has to. And again, it was another episode that started out as an hour 20. So
Wow.
we had a rule after episode 3. We got a grace from HBO saying we'll allow you to be longer on episode 3, and of course the pilot was originally
Cool.
2 episodes,
Uh-huh.
and those were combined into one. But we had to make sure that it was under an hour, so we had to make sure 20 minutes got out, but 20 minutes of things that were not important, and that wouldn't hurt sort of the way that the story evolved.
So interesting to me. So, how long does it take to edit? God, there's so many different ways to like question it too. Like, how long does it take to edit a scene? Or yeah,
That's a
versus
good
an
question.
episode. Edit. Okay, how about this? How long does it take to edit a scene versus how long does it take to edit an episode?
Go ahead, Emily. You tell her.
Okay, so the scene really depends on which scene it is.
True.
Generally, when we're getting our footage in for the day, we will have, at least for this show, we had on average, would you say like 4 scenes a day, 3 scenes a day?
Yeah,
It depended.
I would say 3 to 4.
Yeah, 3 to
For the
4.
same episode, or can it be all different
Yes.
episodes?
Normally we'll get in footage for a single day from just one episode. We're normally
Single day.
working
Okay.
on a single episode. As they're shooting, it's one episode
It's
normally.
pretty. It flows pretty well.
Yeah,
That's
normally,
not always
yeah.
the way they do it in
No.
television. Sometimes they'll cross board and
Sometimes
they'll
it's
shoot.
cross,
Okay.
yeah.
But I'd
They'll
go
shoot out of
bonkers and
order.
crazy.
It all depends. It depends on set availability, location availability, and
True.
seasons.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
4
but
scenes.
ultimately, it's generally you're working on one episode at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 4 scenes in a day
And-
work for you?
Yeah, and I think for this show, it was like how many weeks? We had like a couple weeks for.
It was a 20-day shoot per episode,
Yeah.
which
So,
is a
20-day shoot.
luxury.
Per episode. Oh
Yes,
wow! You get 20 days to edit an episode. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
20 plus a couple days, because generally,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
And 9
because
times
what
20, 180 days.
Yeah.
something like that.
That's pretty
But-
good.
But yeah, as they're shooting for the episode, basically we're working as they're shooting. So
Mhm.
That's cool.
they'll shoot on day 1, and then the next day we're getting those dailies, the footage that they
Wow.
shot, and we're working. So we're always working on that, and then we're trying to keep up with camera. And so when they finish shooting, we normally have a couple days to finish kind of, putting together our editor's cut. They call it the editor's cut. And then we give that over to the director. So that's normally our process.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then how many times do you actually have to rewatch? Because I know you said go back, or no, go for it, go for it. Like how many times do you rewatch the edits before you get them sent off? And who do you send them
Oh
off to?
my
That
goodness.
baffles
That I
me too.
mean, here's the thing.
My brain, I couldn't
I
handle it.
watch a scene so many times before it goes out that at a certain point
Oh gosh.
I finish I say it's where I want it right now, but it's not where it will ultimately end up. I feel like all the pieces are correct. I feel like the timing is correct. I feel like the performances are correct, but it's also everything that they filmed. And a lot of what film editing is truncation and squeezing things so that it instead of it being a theatrical experience, it becomes a
Mhm.
cinematic experience. You don't have to have people open a door, walk in a room, meet another person, and start talking, and then everybody walks out of the room and closes the door. You
Oh
can
yeah,
sometimes start in the middle of the scene. You can take away a few lines of dialogue in the middle of the scene
got
that are
it.
maybe repetitive. You can find ways of condensing things, etc. So up front, when you do the editor's cut, you generally tend to include everything. And so my belief is when you watch a scene, you put it together, you say, all right, this is the kitchen sink version of this scene. Everything is there, and then we have to decide how many extra faucets I put on it. So and how
Blows
many
my
we
mind.
actually need.
Do
So
you take
and so
breathers?
yeah, and so you
Step
have to.
away. Do
And
you ever
usually it's between scenes.
yeah. Do you guys ever now I'm going off topic. Can you guys stay for a little bit more than 7 minutes or do you still
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, a
we're
little
good.
bit for me. I have
You have to
somewhere.
go, right?
I
Yeah.
have to go, but I
Some
can go a little bit over.
No,
all
I
right.
try not to.
How
We can
much
make it
how much do you
Like
have?
10
I'm
minutes
gonna do like
over.
10 minutes over.
okay,
We'll,
Yeah, I
we
perfect.
can do
think that
that.
No,
that'll
we
be
can do
okay
it
for me.
well. I just get so
Okay.
excited.
Cool, cool.
All
Yeah.
good.
No, this is great. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So, do you ever dream about the editing and then you wake up like, I get that for work. Do you guys ever have those like moments at night where you're like, shit?
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes I will actually because
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I'm working on something, especially this show with these characters that really stick with me, and I'll come home and I'll be thinking about scenes, and sometimes I'll just think about stuff, and it's not always, not normally when I'm sleeping, but like I'll come home and I'll just be thinking about things in my mind,
Sure.
and be like, oh, I want to try that tomorrow, like,
Yeah.
or oh, that, and sometimes I do find my dreams will be certain things coming in from the show, but
Oh, sure.
because it's hard to detach sometimes, so
Right. Um, Thank you. And then I have another question. So, you also did sound editing too. Is that correct?
well, we
Or is
do
it
as
sound
editors, we
designing?
do temp sound design. So
Temp.
essentially, we're putting together all the video footage, but it really helps to also have to create a sound base for that, because a lot of times you need to have that accompany the scenes to help with the story.
Yeah.
So a big part of editing is also creating a temp sound design, and I call it temp because eventually, once we're locked, so once the picture is not changing,
Hmm.
we will turn over the episodes to our sound team, and
I
then they
got it.
do this job of really getting it to where it needs to be. But
Uh,
as editors, we start by creating the idea of the soundscape. So we did work very closely with Craig early on, because Craig loves sound design and I love sound design.
right.
I'm very into it,
Yes.
and we're very, very passionate about it. So we bonded over that very quickly, and kind of just setting the tone of the sound for the show. We did do that early on.
Okay, that makes sense because I know I heard you mention like episode 1 with the plane crash, like you helped with that. But then for
Yeah.
me, back to episode 7, of course, and I did watch. I think it's like just behind the scenes making of the episode. Like Craig was
Yeah.
Sure.
super into the Mortal Kombat 2 scene with the inserting
Yeah.
of the coin. It's like the big whoop. Was
Yeah.
that you or was that the sound designers?
That sound okay. So we were given a big folder full of Mortal Kombat 2 sounds.
Ooh, I
And
would
it
have went.
was it was
That's
just
cool.
massive. And there were some sounds in there that we had as options for that coin noise, because in Craig's
Ooh.
script, the noise was very specific. He's
Mhm.
very descriptive in his writing, and he just so well described this idea of that bass kind of just like filling the room. And
Yes,
so
that's it.
Tim
I
Tim
get goosebumps
yeah,
every time. I'm like, ah.
yeah. And so Tim and I we had a couple options, and then we ended up going with the one that's in there now when Craig, listened through them. And it's funny because we all did this panel in Vegas a few months ago,
Oh,
and they
cool.
played that scene.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when they played the scene, that coin noise, it made the whole stage shake. And like it was so, the bass was so strong. I was laughing because I was thinking, this is the experience Craig has been wanting all this time. And then we're sitting on the stage feeling that noise, and it was just
Yes,
great.
Emily.
I was like, it
Yeah, and
worked. It worked.
he was
Yeah.
Good.
he was right there, and he looked at me like, he's like, that's
I get
it.
Oh,
That's
man.
it. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it was
the
really
sounds are
funny.
great. So good. What a little fun story. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. Sound designing seems there's so much going on. There's actually just a podcast or a YouTube video with the special effects editors on how they created everything with CGI. Gosh, it all
nice.
comes together. Very, very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So multitasking. So I guess you guys work in sync with all the episodes. So that's pretty cool. Can you talk to me about any like deleted or like alternate scenes that you wish could have made it in the final cut? Is there anything that you can share? I know that Craig mentioned there's a scene where Ellie is like in a locker room in episode 7, but that didn't get cut. Is that something? Yeah, just tell me anything that you could share that you wish.
I would say here's the thing. There's no deleted scene that I go, I wish it were in.
That's pretty damn
Everything
great.
was, yeah, it's great because ultimately what happens is that, Craig writes the script, they shoot the script, we put it together.
Yeah.
And then again, it becomes that process of compression.
Mhm.
And the locker room scene was literally like Ellie sitting in a locker feeling lonely because all the other girls won't talk to her and they're like giving her side eye. And the very next scene was Ellie alone in her room, and you cut to the other side of the room and there's nobody there because in theory it's Riley's
gone.
side.
Right,
It's
right.
gone. Riley's gone. And once we saw those next to each other, we understood at that very moment that they were doing the same thing. And one was doing it in a more obvious way, and the other one was doing it in a more subtle way.
I
So we said,
instantly
we
got the
don't
loneliness.
need it. Yeah, you get the loneliness from just the soundscape of the rain.
Yeah.
The fact that she's in
The
a room
magazine
and
and
that
like
with the magazine aggressively,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
and then she looks to the other
noticed
side
that.
of the room and the room is empty. So we're
Right.
like, that's a better way of doing this. So this whole locker room scene, it doesn't need to be there because it's a hat on a hat, butter on butter, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but this is a good example of like why editing is so cool is because we had that scene, we had it in there because like Tim was saying, like in editor's cut, we try to put everything in so Craig can see everything he's written on the
True.
screen. And then Craig talks to us about like, oh, like, do we think we need this scene? Let's try this without the scene. And so then we're trying different things constantly. That's why I always call editing like a puzzle. We're always trying different things to get the story to its truest place. And so that is an example of like we took that scene out because we thought maybe we didn't need it, and sure enough then it plays beautifully and we're like, oh, we don't need this scene, we don't need this repetitive beat. And so it's a really cool process.
Yeah,
I love that.
Something that AI cannot do.
Less is more sometimes too, that saying. Oh yeah, AI.
For sure.
So I was gonna hold on 1 sec. I'll show you this.
Okay.
Ta-da-da-da!
Oh, nice.
Wow. Yeah.
Nice.
Crazy stuff. But
Nice. Love it.
Great questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about like continuity too. Timothy, I know you mentioned about like, oh shoot, the hair was like not down in that certain part.
Mhm.
How do you feel about fans catching mistakes? Clearly I have to bring it up. Do you guys mind?
The crew in shot. So is it the crew in shot?
Or the hand by the horse? Is it edited out?
Yeah.
Like, you get to like go back and read upload
Yes,
to
of course.
That is so
we
cool.
did. Yeah.
How do you guys actually feel genuinely?
I don't
when
care.
that happens?
And here's the reason I don't care, because there's so many other things in film history
I didn't even know. Honest to
that
God,
are more
I didn't know.
egregious. Yeah, I know. And the way that things work nowadays, and we're using our Avid systems, which are our editing systems, are actually not Avid systems. They are mirrors that the actual computer is somewhere else. The computer is actually in downtown Los Angeles in a big server room like the Matrix. And we're just dialing into it. And then it's being, the monitors that are in the warehouse are being piped to us. So it's just an image of a monitor as opposed to the monitor itself. So that's compressed, number one. Our footage is compressed, number two. So we're not actually seeing the full image ever.
That's so interesting.
So we have to make decisions based on sort of generalisms And again, in that the shot where the crew was in it, I was looking around and there was no color, there was no movement, there was no anything else, and I couldn't really see because the resolution in such a wide shot, it's impossible to see. So when everyone was like, "Oh, there's the crew in the shot. How could you miss that?" I'm like, "Well, because I don't have the highest res footage, and there was no movement, therefore I couldn't tell anything." So I'm like, "Great." And so I always think of the audience as the last level of QC.
Thank you for
And
your
so if
honesty.
it goes through the audience and there's no issues, I mean, I can tell you so many more problems that they didn't catch, because that's kind of our job, is to be like magicians who are like sleight of hand.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
over here, that's over there. So there's lots of other issues. But that's generally the reason why I don't care, is because the process is the process.
Yeah.
And in the end, it'll get fixed.
Yeah,
Good.
and
There's no Starbucks cups. Be proud
Oh
of
yeah,
that.
the Starbucks cups. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And then there's other things, just like continuity
Thank
in
you.
general. Like when we're editing, like continuity, sometimes we have to choose story over continuity. So
Mhm.
if we have two pieces that we're cutting together and the performance is great and the camera is great and everything is great, and maybe a character's hand is doing something that they're not exactly doing in the next shot, well, that is lower on our list of priorities because story is always number one for us. So
Yeah.
sometimes we do have continuity issues that we're very aware of, but we choose the story over it, and we always consider continuity. We, if something is very blatantly wrong, we will fix it or have our VFX team fix it.
Sure.
But sometimes you kind of have to pick and choose.
Yeah. Great.
If it's
Honestly,
if it's distracting and if it's
Yeah.
pervasive.
Right.
I
Yeah.
can give you an example. In the episode 3, Bill and Frank, Murray and Nick are fighting outside. They're having their big argument.
Right.
And for one of the takes, Murray Bartlett's white undershirt was poking through at his wrist. And every time, because he's moving his arm, and because it's a white piece against like a plaid piece,
Mhm.
it's so noticeable when it's there versus when it's not. And so it
Right.
was like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Because every time it's
No
not
matter
white,
what.
and then it is white.
Oh
And
man.
it's like every time you made those edits, it was distracting from the story. So you couldn't make those edits
Right.
without thinking about the fact how it was distracting the story. So we just said to our visual effects team, can you remove this white shirt? Because
kidding.
there's more removals than there would be additions. And
Right.
so Alex Wong, our visual effects supervisor, is like, don't worry.
Yeah.
And then he just literally just like
Brilliant.
removed it.
Alex
and so
is the best.
Alex is the best. And he would just be like,
We
yeah,
love
no
him.
problem. I got you guys.
Yeah.
And so
Alright.
we would solve those problems however we could. But if it's not a pervasive or distraction, then we will always, again, as Emily said, we will go with story and character and emotion first.
That's fantastic. I know we have 6 minutes. I'm gonna do one last question about The Last of Us,
Sure.
and then
Cool.
rapid fire, Emily. These are supposed to be like quick answers. We'll try to get through as many as we can. So my last question is like, can you share both of your most like memorable scenes editing, and also about how you were at the premiere in front of everyone
Oh, sure.
watching it? So most memorable scene first.
For me, my most memorable scene will always be the dance and kiss in Left Behind. Left Behind was the first episode Tim and I co-edited together, because we edited out of order the episodes. And that scene for me, Tim was so gracious to let me cut it, and I was so excited about it. And I spent a bunch of time working on it, and I had a blast. But also at that point, since I was moving, I had moved up and I was co-editing, you feel pressure where you're like, I don't want to mess this up.
Oh,
Like, this is my
yeah.
chance. And like, I don't want to, not do a good job. And so that scene I knew was a really important scene. And I remember sending it to Tim and, being nervous because you're waiting because he's watching it. And so, it's a pretty long scene. And so I'm waiting and waiting. And then he calls me and he's just like screaming on the phone. He's like, it's so great. And, I love it. And he's just so nice. And it made me feel like, okay, I've got this. Like I can do this.
Beautiful.
And it kind of just helped me with that little confident boost that I needed, that bit of confidence that like I had, but I was also, you kind of go back and forth. So
Of course.
for
Well
me,
done.
it's that scene, because I truly love that scene, and I can't help but smile every time I watch it. So that's mine.
Agreed. It's such a great scene.
Yeah.
What are you sorry for? What? Oh God, it gets me every time. Timothy,
Exactly.
what's your most memorable?
My most memorable scene is when Bill plays the piano
Oh,
for
yeah.
Frank, and Frank realizes that he is in love with this guy who originally he was just sort of playing with.
Well
I was
done.
just noodling this guy, and then you see the entire transition of both characters, from one person who transitions from hiding who he is to revealing who he
Yeah,
is,
like-
and one character transitioning from curious and playful to truly moved emotionally. So that to me is
Oh,
an
beautiful.
8-minute sequence that I cannot ever hope for better. It's the best for me.
I think so too. There was no girl. Like all of that.
There was no girl.
There was no girl. Oh,
Yep.
beautiful. Well, thank you. I think we need to do part 2. Are you ready for some quick rapid fire lighthearted questions? I do this
Sure.
for every podcast episode.
Great.
I need them quick. Okay. Emily, you go first. What is your favorite way to unwind and relax when you're not working?
Hanging out with my dogs.
Good answer. Timothy.
Honestly, traveling. If
Perfect.
I can travel, I'm traveling.
All right. Timothy, what is your go-to comfort food or guilty pleasure snack?
Fried macaroni and cheese.
Oh, Cheesecake Factory has really good ones, and Trader Joe's.
Oh, nice.
Emily?
Mine is baked potato with lots of cheese. Super melted. Like, I love a great baked potato. That's really makes
You
me
heard
happy
it
in
here,
life.
folks. Emily loves a good baked potato. All right, number 3. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
Ah!
2 minutes. Isn't this fun though? This is
I know. I mean,
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, the Galapagos Islands.
That's a great answer. You know, my
Oh.
grandpa wants to go to Tasmania, which is like super unique.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Australia. I just want to go and see like the outback and different things there. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, Emily, do you have a skill or hobby that might surprise people?
Oh, that's a good question.
Etsy junkie.
No, I don't know. I am an Etsy junkie, but like it doesn't surprise people. Like Craig
love your
pegged me.
crafting
Like
and your
he knew
art.
I was like he knew I would loved Etsy like before I ever even said anything. So I wouldn't say it surprises people unless I mean Craig just knows those things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And we did go to art fair together.
Yeah,
think
see,
we-
like an art fair is like my jam.
That's
Like
your-
I like come alive. I love
you
artists
do.
and following like fan art and all kinds of things. That is like totally me. So
I love that. How about you, Timothy? Can you do anything cool?
Yep. Architect. I can design a house.
No kidding. Do you have Sims?
I don't even have Sims. I have an actual architecture program where I have actually designed houses that have been built.
it
That's
is so
amazing.
cool. I've seen it and it's very impressive, I have to say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Emily, do you have a favorite book?
Okay, I don't read a lot. That's
neither.
my
Guilty.
problem. I have
It's okay.
trouble but I love reading lesbian romance novels. That has been something that yeah, so I will read all kinds.
Do you guys know Joe? I saw a Bella Ramsey interview, and there was a girl from Naughty Dog named Joe who did a graphic novel. Never mind.
No, I don't
That's
know.
great. No worries.
Yeah.
Timothy, do you have a favorite book?
I do. And it's called Tales of the City, because it was the first sort of queer book I read, and I just loved it. So
Perfect.
That's
And
beautiful.
then 2 more questions, and then we'll call it. Okay, if you could have dinner
Sounds
with
good.
anyone, living or dead, who would it be?
how about I think I have a great answer. I would have a dinner party with Craig Mazin, Melissa Mazin, Emily Mendez, Rachel Fowler Mendez, my husband Elias, and that would be my perfect dinner.
And my perfect dinner would be joining that dinner. So
And mine perfect dinner would be my husband and I joining too.
There you go. We have 2 extra seats.
And then lastly, what is something that makes you happy and fulfilled in life?
My dog and my husband, and the intimate moments we get to share when we're not working like crazy people.
yeah, family is
Beautiful.
super important. My wife, my dogs, my parents, my siblings, and also creativity. I think being creative is so important to me, and that's why I like what we do as editors, because we can be very creative. And so a mixture of family and creativity and art, that's all I need in
Right.
life, really.
You bring creativity to your career. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a fun hangout, you guys. Timothy,
Yeah.
Emily, thank you so much for today. It's a
Thank you
blessing.
for having
Yeah,
us.
thank
It's been
you
wonderful.
You're
for having us,
welcome.
Sadie.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'll
All right.
see you soon.
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
bye.
Bye.